But now I don't see those cobbles and curbs. I don't hear the blues anymore.
Rough Trade is giving away a third of the first 3 months of the Rough Trade Club plus new music membership exclusively to 101 Part-Time Jobs listeners. Become a member of Rough Trade Club New Music and you'll receive the Rough Trade Album of the Month straight to your door every month on exclusive vinyl pressing with exclusive bonus material. Club members have received exclusive pressings of albums from Sufjan Stevens, Sprints, The Last Dinner Party, Julie Byrne, and Over Mono, just to name a few, this past year alone. Sign up using the promo code CLUB101POD and you'll get the Rough Trade Album of the Month, English Teacher's excellent debut album, This Could Be Texas, on exclusive Galaxy Gold for a third of the usual price. Here's English Teacher on a recent episode of 101.
How many opportunities do you get to write a debut album and have all of this, sport behind us? I don't know, I really like the idea of holding the bar as being like classic songs.
You only get one shot at a debut.
Don't want the album of the month but still want all the benefits? Sign up to the standard tier using Club 101 Pod and you'll still get the first month free. You'll also get free shipping on all orders, 10% off the bar and on secondhand vinyl in store, and exclusive access to sold out Rough Trade events. So don't hang around. Go to roughtrade.com/club and sign up with the code CLUB101POD. That's CLUB101POD and claim money off the album of the month, English Teachers This Could Be Texas, today. This offer's available to UK residents only. Do you play in bands? I did for the longest time. And I wish that I knew that DistroKid was a thing. I don't even think it existed back then. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. When you get DistroKid, you can see a DistroKid bank and withdraw your earnings. You get notified when you've earned royalties and you can withdraw via the app. And you can even check your streaming stats on Spotify and Apple. Get 30% off your first year on DistroKid by going to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off for your first year. That's not bad. We know it's a tough world out there. Why don't you make it easier for yourself? And to get 30% off that free year as an artist, where you get 100% of your royalties and earnings, go to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. All right, stay with me. I'll be right back after this.
You are about to participate in the most ambitious culinary experiment ever imagined.
This competition is going to test everything.
Adapt quickly to anything. I mean anything. The wildest day of your life starts right now.
Series premiere 24 and 24, Last Chef Standing. Sunday night at 8 on Food Network. Stream on Max.
The Vietnam War, it's over. Your job's just begun.
A new HBO original limited series.
Welcome to the world of spycraft. Strap in.
From executive producers Park Chan-wook and Robert Downey Jr.
What are you concealing?
Based on the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel by Viet Thanh Nguyen.
What if I told you that I was a communist spy?
How did you become this?
The Sympathizer, streaming April 14th on Max. Subscription required.
Hey, you're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs. I'm Giles Bidder and I speak to some amazing guests about their unexpected careers in music. At the end of the day, there's never going to be a set trajectory about how an artist makes their music their living. So that's what I'm trying to do here. That's what I find interesting. I hope you share that with me. You and me, we get to hear about these artists. Amazing, often unheard stories. They're not superheroes, they're humans like us. That's what I find great about this whole thing. And we get that on today's episode with E from Eels. I introduced myself to Eels when I was young and bought a 7-inch because I recognized the name and I liked the cover, and I never turned back. His songwriting has such a warming, comforting value. And chances are, if you're listening to this, you share that connection, you share that feeling. And it's a wonderful time for it as well. Coming up to Christmas, it can get lonely. It's a painful time of the year for a lot of people. And music is the thing to save us from that, to save us from the edge, to talk us down often in those kinds of scenarios. So it's brilliant that Eels have a brand new Christmas song out, Christmas, Why You Gotta Do Me Like This. It's called, even the title, you know, is gonna be a good one. Rhyming Christmas with this. Yeah, big fan. E tells us about Essential Eels Volume 2. Eels so good, which I'm very pleased about as a title. And this chat is all about E's journey as a songwriter and in the music business. So that's what's coming up. Thank you for joining us. I just want to shout out our sponsor, 2000 Trees Festival. They've just won the Best Medium Festival Award in the UK. Pretty amazing stuff. They are an independent festival where they've got totally independent retailers. You go there, you have a brilliant feeling. You see some incredible bands from folk and acoustic all the way through rock and punk to hardcore. If you want to go to a festival in the UK next July, 2000 Trees could be the one. It should be the one. Give it a look, 2000trees.co.uk. Tickets right now before the end of the year are at 30% off. It's the cheapest they'll ever be. It's a Wednesday through to Saturday. You even get the Sunday off. They're very conscientious, these 2000 Trees folk, for people who need a day or two to recover, like me, maybe like you. 2000trees.co.uk is where you can get your ticket. It's being headlined on the Thursday by the Gaslight Anthem. They're yet to announce the other headliners, but definitely playing our Manchester Orchestra, Boston Manor, Hot Mulligan, The Excerts, The Mysterines, Gouge Away, Teenage Wrist, and that's only the first announcement. Loads more to come from 2000 Trees. Head to 2000trees.co.uk to get your tickets. The cheapest they'll ever be. Okay, before we get into this chat, I've got Rebecca from Ampolo here. Ampolo is the first all-in-one app connecting a global community of musicians and bringing an all-in-one place to practice, record, and collaborate. Until now, practicing has been kind of lonely. There's been technical barriers. These are all things that Ampolo is working to make your life better for. Isn't that right, Rebecca? What's going on over there?
Interestingly, we've been having lots of conversations with students and teachers and universities and colleges, and there's this big push of people wanting to use it as part of their curriculum to accelerate learning and change the way that music is taught. You're able to talk to each other in real life within the same project. So forget about jumping back to WhatsApp and emails and things like that. I can watch back your performance and say, that bit was great, this bar needs a bit more practice. So we've been getting feedback that Ampolo is a total game changer for music education, and it's so much easier using this than using multiple apps and jumping around to communicate with each other. So it's a really exciting space.
Ampolo, get on it sooner than later. Okay, here he is, the guy with all the eelings. It's E from Eels. 101 part-time jobs. Yeah, how have you been? What's it been like the last few days releasing the new Christmas track?
Oh, well, it's fun because we have two previous Christmas tunes, but it's been ages since either of those came out. One of them came out in like 1997, I think, and the other one came out in 2000, just like a few years later. So it's been at least 23 years since we had a Christmas tune. And I'm very aware of the rule that any artist worth his salt should have at least 3 Christmas tunes in his catalog. And I apologize to the fans everywhere, Christmas fans, the elves and the reindeers, that it took me this long to just reach the bare minimum.
I mean, it's a bold move, isn't it? Putting out a Christmas tune. Did you ever have any kind of anxiety or worry, or was there that feeling where you're like, if I'm gonna make a Christmas tune, it better be a fucking good one?
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I think more often than not, people put out covers of Christmas classics, and the classics are always growing because now, you know, stuff from like just 20 years ago could be considered a classic. So it is bold to come up with your own. I agree.
I mean, you have such a great voice and such a great tone for it. You know, I mean, the way that I got into the Eels in my early 20s, where I was going through so much of that kind of growing pain, learning to stand on my own 2 feet and paying rent and getting into relationships, some of which lasted longer than others. Eels for me, and I think that this is what you do in your songwriting for so many people, is you provide a friend. And I think in a time like Christmas, which can be a really lonely time for a lot of people, similarly to the movie, to the film, to the songs that you've done for movies, like Yes Man and like Shrek, where we are thrust into that feeling of the vulnerability of someone, Eels is a really brilliant companion for it.
Wow, thanks. Well, I'm really happy to hear that. I mean, on the surface, this is very much a bummer Christmas song. This new one, it's called Christmas, Why You Gotta Do Me Like This.
Yeah.
But my whole point is I've had plenty of great Christmases in my life. And I think most of my childhood Christmases were actually good memories that I remember. Maybe I blocked out some really bad ones, but
we all do.
But I still think, there's nothing like having a miserable holiday season, whatever your holidays are that you celebrate. And there's something about, like for some reason, like couples always break up on like birthdays or Valentine's Day or Christmas, and the worst, of course, is when you've bought some expensive Christmas present for your partner and then they break up with you right before Christmas, and you can't return it. It's too late, because you bought it too early or something, Like I want to write songs for people like that sometimes, not always, but people like that. I've been there. We've all been there, and I also think of it as like, Tiny Tim before Ebenezer Scrooge sees the light and buys them Christmas dinner and brings home the duck or whatever he puts on the table. Something for Tiny Tim's mood before everything gets better, because he doesn't see that coming anytime soon. So here's a song for Tiny Tim before Ebenezer Scrooge sees the light.
Do you have particular times in the year that you'll end up writing more than others? And of course, that's something that you'll find out afterwards. In retrospect, you'll realize, oh, I was writing more songs in, October, November, December, when it starts to get that time of year, or maybe in the spring. We're both Aries, by the way. I'm 8th of April. You're the day after.
Oh, you're Julian Lennon's birthday.
Is that right?
Yeah. He was born literally 2 days before me. Same year.
Do you think you carry those traits of an Aries, which are what? Someone who's quite up for it, let's say, and someone who's ambitious and enthusiastic and doesn't mind, sending it?
I don't think I do carry those things, because I am of a firm belief that that's not how the world works, and that those things aren't a thing. I'm much more science-based than that, so I don't believe that has anything to do with it. Also, I live in Los Angeles now, and I can't say it's like I notice a seasonal influence on my writing, because there's barely any seasons here. Like, you can tell it's Los Angeles's version of winter right now, which is nothing like what you experience winter as. And I grew up in Virginia on the other side of America, and we did have 4 distinct seasons, and they were all extreme. And I missed that. It was great. And back then, I remember, like, in my teens and early 20s, before I moved from Virginia, I definitely felt like a influence from the seasons that influenced everything, really. I could mark everything in my life based on it, really.
Do you remember that time of those earlier years writing and how you were into it? I mean, that's one thing I'd love to do on this show, is to hear about the way that people create their own discipline and, at some point in their life, identify as someone who cares more about writing music and being an artist than anything else. And I think, this world is full of pressures, and, you go to school and you're told you should do this, should do that. I'm really interested in the in the sort of saying no to that, into the defiance of that. So what were you like, kind of coming out of school and getting into writing as a discipline?
Well, that all really applies to me in a strong way, because when I was young and a teenager, I had no plans or hopes for the future. For some reason, I didn't think I was going to live long. For some reason, I thought I wasn't going to live to see 18 even. I don't know why. I just had that. And then I was 18 and I barely graduated high school. It wasn't because I was dumb. It was because I just wasn't interested. It just was boring to me for the most part. And most of my friends were going off to college, and I hadn't prepared for any of that. And I didn't know what to do. I had literally no plan. And I just went to college with some of my friends because I didn't know what else to do. So I just went. And I really didn't like it. I made some good friends and I had some fun times, but for the most part, I was quite unhappy and miserable with it all. And I ended up going to almost 4 full years of college. And then right towards the end of it, I just said, what am I doing? Like, all I really have a passion for is music. And I know it's insane. And I know, like, the odds of me making a living doing something with music are slim, but I don't want to do anything else. I don't care if I fail. It's this or nothing. So I quit school and I moved to LA. I kind of tossed a coin between New York and LA. Those are the two places to move if you wanted to be in like centers of where music stuff could happen. Well, really, I picked LA because it was further away. I just wanted to get away as far as possible. This was very far away. It was, all the way across the country. And I just packed up my 4-track and my acoustic guitar and whatever else I had in my car and drove 3,000 miles across America. I didn't know a single person in California, and just had the worst time for 3 years. Miserable, but let this be hopefully some sort of inspiration for anyone who's in the similar shoes. Is after 3 years of no hope, I mean a lifetime of no hope. I mean, I was at this point I was 28. Because it took so long in my 20s to decide to move to LA and pursue music seriously, and then it took another 3 years or so of just spinning my wheels, really trying hard to get somewhere. I would do what they called the Nashville Handshake. And every time I met anyone that had anything to do with the music industry, I would shake their hand and have my latest little 4-track cassette demo. And I later learned from a guy who became my first manager that was known as the Nashville Handshake. And eventually, after 3 years of Nashville handshaking, I gave someone the handshake who responded in kind. And it led to me getting my first record deal. And then, even then, I mean, that was like just an unbelievable, let's take a moment to just bask in the glory of like the impossible happened. And I could not have been happier. I was able to quit my job just barely. It was a small record deal and it was for 2 records. So, but unfortunately, like the week that my second album came out, I got dropped from the label and was back to square one. So that was particularly painful to feel at that point when you finally got the brass ring and then you lose it is a particular intense pain, and then that led to another 2 or 3 years of starting over again and Nashville handshaking and in various ways. Then amazingly, lightning struck again for me, and I got another record deal. And that was the Eels.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
101, 101, part-time jobs, 101, 101, 101, part-time jobs. 101 part-time jobs is what this show's called, and that there for me is...
I've had at least 99 of them.
Still some time to go.
Yeah, there's still room for at least 2 more.
But it takes, one of the things that I'm so interested is it how much it takes someone to get through times like that. I'm lucky in that my mum's an author, and she, when I was a teenager, is when she got signed for her first book. Before that, she was doing magazine journalism.
Wow, that's cool.
And so I watched her become this thing that she always wanted to do. She always wanted to write books. People around her weren't very encouraging, and she got this deal. And from then on, for her, it's always been up and down. The monetary is never attached to the being inspired or the writing. And so, my question is, or the thing I'm thinking about or posing here is, has it always been like that for you? Has it always been getting signed and then getting unsigned? It doesn't have to necessarily, obviously not that, but in terms of the way you feel and the way that kind of life has treated you, or you've reacted around you, and the result of that.
I think that's a great question, and it, in some ways, yes. And I feel like only very recently would I say has it sort of worn off in that way for me. But it did happen again in my story. There was a third time. So the Eels got signed to DreamWorks Records, and then we were the first band signed to DreamWorks, and we made the most albums. We made 5 albums on DreamWorks, and then it was at the point where the music industry hit a wall and started running out of money because of the internet was changing everything so rapidly, and everything was changing in huge ways as far as how people listen to music. And DreamWorks Records ended up going under and selling. They had to sell to Interscope Records. And Interscope Records looked at my catalog, or my account, I guess, and decided to drop me because we had spent so much money, because we'd made more records on DreamWorks than anyone else. And made crazy expensive videos and everything. We were way in the red. We had not ever made a penny profit for DreamWorks. So they promptly dropped us. And this is when I had made our double album, Blinking Lights, and I had submitted it to them. It was on their desk, and they didn't even bother to listen to it. They just dropped us unceremoniously. But what was beautiful about it was we had one more record on the contract, and they had to pay me to get rid of me. So I got paid like they were putting the album out, which was fantastic because that was just free money, And then we made another record deal. So this is like my third time. And
so then you had 2 records ready to go.
Well, a double, yeah, So it's the only time I ever had the nerve to make a double album, and I do look back on it like it's either my best album or one of my best 2 albums, and it's crazy to me that they didn't even bother to listen to it, but whatever. But here's the really great part, was then eventually Universal bought Interscope and the DreamWorks catalog, so I got paid twice for one album, and now I'm basically might as well be on Interscope anyway because it's all on Universal. So it was at the time, it was all incredibly painful for me. And I hope this can be inspiration for some younger artists too. That like at the time, you can be going through stuff that just seems unbearably hard to deal with and soul crushing. And then it turns out like this, like, oh, you had no way of knowing at the time that you're going to be paid 2 or 3 times and this is going to turn out great. And everyone's going to look back on that album that nobody wanted. That was the loneliest feeling, because also it was the hardest record I ever made, like really hard to make. And that I can look back on it and be proud of it. You know, like we recently reissued it on vinyl, and I had to listen to it all the way through to approve the mastering. And I was like really proud of it. I was like, this is like, I'm really glad. I was overwhelmed by, I could feel the feeling of how hard I worked on it, and that part was still kind of painful to me. But I was really ultimately just proud that I made it and somehow endured all the hardships of nobody wanting it and it turning out so good for me. And it's because of records like that and our earlier one, Electroshock Blues, that I think are why we're still around, really. But the business people, the record company people, had a hard time seeing that at the time. They just wanted, in fact, Interscope originally wanted to sign us when DreamWorks ended up signing us, and they offered us more money. And our manager was like, "Go with Interscope; it's more money." And I was like, "Yeah, but when I turn in the second record, they're going to just want Beautiful Freak Part 2 of the first Eels album." And I did Electroshock Blues, and Interscope would have dropped me right then in 1998. But I instead took less money and signed with DreamWorks, much to my manager's chagrin. And when I handed in Electroshock Blues to DreamWorks, Lenny Warnaker and Mo Austin, the heads of the label, sat there in front of me in their conference room, listened to the whole record with their heads bowed down at the desk, which can be an incredibly awkward experience. And then when it was over, they looked up and Mo shook my hand and said, "Thank you, E, it's beautiful." And that was the only discussion. They didn't reject it. They put it out. And I know they knew it wasn't going to be an easy thing to sell. And it wasn't. It commercially bombed. But it's why I'm still around, because I think people could hear in it that I was a serious artist. You know, I wasn't going to be the kind of frivolous artist that did everything the label wanted. And these guys, Lenny and Mo at DreamWorks, were known for that. And that's why I wanted to sign with them. They signed Prince, they signed Hendrix, they signed the Kinks, you know, Randy Newman, Ricky Lee Jones, like they're known. Their whole thing was like with Prince, he put out 5 albums, and you know, and like Billboard magazine would ask him like, "When's this guy ever going to have success?" And they're like, "Don't worry, give him time. You know, he's a young artist. He needs time to develop." And they were, of course, right about him and so many others. And the great part ending to my story and all the different signings and everything was that Lenny and Mo were right about using that approach with even me, because years after, and not that many years after, Interscope rejected me because, you know, my DreamWorks account had been left so far in the red. One day I got a check and I said, "What is this?" It was from Universal once they'd owned the DreamWorks catalog. And I found out eventually it was a check because we had actually recouped all our costs of making those 5 albums and all the crazy expensive videos and anything else they make you pay for. And for you know, a couple decades, just about, I have been a moneymaker for Universal. You know, not that they need money. They are Universal. But I'm happy that like I actually, you know, got to make all that and it worked, you know. And I ran into Lenny, who went back to work at Warner Brothers after that. And I ran into him at a restaurant in my neighborhood years after the fact. And I got to tell him in person, you were right. You did the right thing, even with me. Like, I recouped, and he like put his arm around me. He was like, "That's so great. I'm so happy to hear that." It was a beautiful moment.
Amazing. I mean, only time will tell, how something that is not necessarily commercially, quote unquote, successful, and then time tells because people listen to it and people can tell that, like you say, you're a serious songwriter and it's got heart in it. It's got experience. It's human connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some people say like it takes like 5 years to know, what a record really is, whatever. I would even say like maybe 10 years, before you really know. Mm-hmm. It just takes a while for stuff to resonate. And so often, like, me or the record company try to figure out like what songs are the singles and all that. Mm-hmm. And like, it's almost always wrong, It's it's almost always, you just, guess at it. But the songs that end up like, and this is on my mind particularly now because we had to pick, a couple songs off of each album to be on this best of volume 2 that we're putting out now.
Yeah.
Called, Eels So Nice.
Essential Eels.
Yeah.
Eels So Good. Ace title.
Like, how lucky am I? I've been around so long, I'm putting out a volume 2 best of. Like, geez, I can't believe I got to do a volume 1. Let alone, I can't believe I got to do one album, But, but then when looking at the songs that we picked for these, they become obvious choices after the fact. And they're very often different choices than we made, before the albums came out in each case. Mm-hmm. Because, you think, oh, this song is the obvious single, and then it doesn't go anywhere. And there's some like song that doesn't sound like a single at all to you initially, but it becomes like a song that like everyone plays at their wedding, or, becomes like an important song in people's lives. And those,
what's an example of that? I'm thinking I like the way this is going.
That is exactly the one. That's the one I was just thinking of. You're right. Yeah. Like, that's in a million years would not have called that a single, because it's just like me and a guitar and a bass. And, it's like this jangly folk song. And it took on a life of its own, and then it ended up in a movie or two. And then next thing you know, in retrospect, oh, okay, I guess that's the single, Yeah. And I never would have guessed otherwise. The Beatles, like, they didn't even bother to put out "Here Comes the Sun" as a single, and now it's like by far their most listened to song. And I think a big part of that is because when the lyrics of a song are a subject matter that's like a daily part of people's lives, it gets a lot of play. I think just England alone, every spring, people are, repeat playing "Here Comes the Sun," and that stuff like that is what leads to its play numbers. And in retrospect, I think the Beatles probably would have made it a single.
There are going to be some songs that you toil away at for months longer, and tunes that you write in an afternoon. And it seems like there's a thing that happens with those songs that are written in 10 minutes, half an hour, an afternoon. Those ones become...
Yeah. Well, again, like in our case, I just realized we have the same thing as far as the Beatles go, as far as like currently our most popular songs as far as plays go on Spotify and whatnot is from one of the Shrek movies called "I Need Some Sleep." And I think it's because it's the same thing as like "Here Comes the Sun." Sleep is a daily experience for all of us. And so I think it gets a lot of play just because it's part of people's day. And if they're having a rough night, then they're playing "I Need Some Sleep," So my advice to songwriters is just look at the day, every hour, what happens in everybody's life, and write a song about all those things.
Brilliant.
101 part-time jobs, 101 part-time jobs.
Hey, thank you so much for this, E. I really appreciate your time doing this
thanks,
chat.
Man. It's fun. It's thanks for making me reappreciate all I've been through and feeling good about it.
Awesome. Good to hear. I've just got one more question,
sure.
Which is, thinking about all of this stuff, and I guess it's nice to think of like a kind of positive examples of this, or, you know, I'm forever going to be an optimist. And I think optimism is really true optimism is based in reality, right? That's my kind of my thesis on it. With that in mind, what do you think the biggest lesson that you've learned is in playing music and having a career in music? What's been the biggest lesson that you've received, that you've experienced?
Gosh, that's a great question. I don't know, really. I mean, I think based on just the stuff we've been talking about today, I have to say there is no rule book, you know? Like, no matter how much it seems like things are a certain way, when you're in the thick of something, particularly some miserable experience trying to get somewhere with your music, like, you really don't know what's in your rule book. It's out of your reach. And all you can do is just try to make a leap of faith and just do whatever you can to, you know, like John Lennon said, whatever gets you through the night. Get through those dark nights however you can. Don't do anything crazy. Just hold on, get through the tough times, and there's going to be plenty of tough times, and just keep trying your best, and you might be amazed, because I agree with you about optimism. I'm an optimist too, because, you know, I mean, I look at it like, even lately, I've noticed it on the internet. Like, the internet is definitely, you know, a lot of it is a force for not good things, but there's also this great wave of, you know, sites that are just about good news and stuff like that. And you see so much stuff that you wouldn't see in the regular news of, like, just amazing people doing amazing positive things. And amazing positive things happening to unsuspecting people. And I think those unsuspecting people can include lowly songwriters like us.
Big time. Hey, great stuff. Thank you so much, E. So there he was, E on 101 Part-Time Jobs. I really appreciate his openness about his story. I mean, I guess why wouldn't you be open? You know, I think the world's becoming a place, especially, you know, in the music industry, about saying this is how it works, this is my experience, and it's about sharing, it's about giving away that information and let it be known that it's not all behind a luscious velvet curtain. These are real people who have put in work and time and have made something amazing that we all enjoy. I don't mind getting a little bit deep about that. That's kind of what I'm here to do. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got value out of that. I sure did. Thank you for being here. Eels So Good is out now. Go and pick that up. And I hope you enjoy this Christmas. I hope you got things to do. I hope you can surround yourself with good people. And I'll see you soon. In fact, on Thursday with Jacob from Health. One last thing, it doesn't come massively naturally for me to ask if you could vote for us in an awards, but podbiblemag.com are doing their monthly listener polls for podcasts. If you click onto there, you can select DIY Magazine for the best music podcast, which is another show I co-host. Brilliant show, DIY Magazine, Before They Knew Better. But if you click through to the final page, you can type in 101 Part-Time Jobs in the Oh My Pod section. So you can do that at podbiblemag.com. Thank you so much if you're able to do that.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.